You don't lack confidence. You lack control over what gets a reaction out of you. And until you fix that, your life will always feel unstable, because right now too many things can move you. A message left on read, a small comment someone makes, a look, a tone, a delay, someone else's opinion. And suddenly, your mood shifts, your energy drops, your thoughts spiral, and you don't even realize what just happened, but something did. You reacted, and that reaction just took control of your state. You call it overthinking. You call it just how I am. You tell yourself, I just care too much. But what's actually happening is simpler and more dangerous. You're being controlled by what you react to. Think about it. You send a message to someone. They don't reply. At first it's nothing. Then a few minutes pass. Then more time. And now your mind starts working. Did I say something wrong? Why are they ignoring me? Maybe they're upset. Your mood changes. Your focus is gone. You check your phone again. And again and again, nothing changed externally. But internally, everything did. That's not confidence. That's emotional dependency, and it doesn't stop there. Someone criticizes you, not even harshly, just enough, and suddenly you feel the need to explain yourself, to defend, to prove something, to fix how they see you. And in that moment, you've already lost control, because now they're not just expressing an opinion, they're controlling your state. Or this one, you're doing well, you're focused, you're consistent. And then you see someone else, someone doing better, more success, more attention, more progress. And just like that, you feel behind. You feel like you're not doing enough. Your confidence drops. Your motivation shifts. Again, nothing actually changed in your life, but your reaction made it feel like everything did. And this is where most people stay stuck. They try to build confidence without fixing their reactions. They try to feel better without controlling what affects them. But you can't build a stable life on unstable reactions. You can't become dangerously confident if everything still gets to you. Because real confidence is not loud. It's not forcing yourself to feel good. It's not pretending things don't affect you. Real confidence is this. You decide what deserves a reaction. And most things don't. But right now, too many things do. And that's why you feel like you can't control your emotions. Because you're reacting before you even realize you had a choice. That's the part nobody tells you. Reactivity is automatic until you become aware of it. And once you start seeing it, you'll notice something uncomfortable. You don't just react in big moments. You react constantly. In conversations, in silence, in your thoughts, in how you interpret things. Someone doesn't greet you the same way. You feel it. Someone takes longer to respond. You feel it. Someone seems distant. You feel it. And every time you feel it, you react internally, emotionally, mentally, and all of those small reactions add up. They shape your mood, they shape your decisions, they shape your identity, and over time, they shape your life. So when you say, I can't control my emotions, what you're really saying is, I haven't learned how to control my reactions, because emotions are not the problem. Your response to them is, and until you see that clearly, you'll keep trying to fix the wrong thing. You'll keep chasing confidence while your reactions keep breaking it. But once you understand this, everything starts to shift. Because now, you're not just feeling things, you're watching them, you're noticing what triggers you, what moves you, what changes your state. And that awareness is where control begins. But this is just the surface, because what you think you're reacting to is not always what's actually triggering you. There's something deeper happening, something underneath the reaction. And once you see that, you'll understand why you get triggered so easily, and why it feels so hard to stay calm. But before we go there, pause for a second, because if you're already recognizing yourself in this matters more than you think. And if you're serious about becoming someone who can't be easily shaken, someone who has real emotional control, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is where real self-mastery begins. Now let's go deeper, because understanding that you react is one thing. Understanding why you react is what changes everything. You think you react sometimes, but the truth is you react constantly. Not just in obvious moments, not just when something big happens, in small, quiet, almost invisible ways all day. And because these reactions feel normal, you don't question them. You assume, this is just how I feel. But most of what you feel is a reaction, not a fact. Let's slow this down. Someone walks past you and doesn't acknowledge you. Nothing is said. Nothing actually happens. But instantly, your mind fills in the gap. Did they ignore me? Did I do something? Are they acting different? And now you feel something. Slight tension, slight discomfort, a subtle shift in your mood. That's a reaction not to reality, but to your interpretation of it. And this is where most people lose control. They don't react to what happens. They react to what they think it means. Let's take another one. You post something online, you check it, a few likes, but not as many as you expected. And suddenly, your energy drops. You start thinking, was this not good? Do people not care? Should I delete it? Again, nothing serious happened. But your reaction created a problem that didn't exist before, and now your confidence depends on it. This is how emotional instability is built, not from big failures, but from small, repeated reactions to things that don't deserve that level of control. And the deeper truth is this: you've trained yourself to react this way, not intentionally, but through repetition. Every time you take things personally, assume the worst, seek validation, overanalyze situations, you strengthen the pattern. And over time, that pattern becomes automatic. You don't even pause anymore, you just react. And that's why it feels like I can't control my emotions, because the reaction happens before awareness. But let's go deeper, because there are specific triggers that control most people. And if you don't recognize them, they will keep controlling you. Trigger 1, fear of judgment. This is one of the strongest. You say something and immediately think, how did that sound? Did that come out right? Do they think I'm weird? And now, instead of being present, you're replaying the moment. That's not awareness, that's reaction. And it comes from one place. You care too much about how you are perceived. Not because you're weak, but because your identity is tied to it. So every interaction becomes a test, and every test triggers a reaction. Trigger 2, need for control. You want things to go a certain way. People to respond how you expect. Situations to unfold how you planned. But life doesn't work like that. So when something goes off script, you react: frustration, irritation, overthinking, because your mind is trying to regain control, but instead it loses it. Trigger 3, insecurity you haven't faced. This is deeper. Certain things trigger you more than others. Not randomly, but because they touch something unresolved. Someone more successful triggers you. Someone confident triggers you. Someone dismissive triggers you. Why? Because it connects to something internal, something you haven't fully accepted or resolved, and instead of facing it, you react to it externally, emotionally, automatically. And this is where self-awareness becomes powerful, because once you see your triggers, you stop being surprised by your reactions. You start recognizing patterns. You start noticing, this situation always affects me. This type of person always triggers me. This kind of comment always gets to me. And that's where control begins, not by suppressing your emotions, but by understanding them. Because when you understand your triggers, you create space. Space between what happens and how you respond. And in that space, you finally have power. But here's what most people do instead. They try to control their emotions by forcing themselves to stay calm. They suppress, they ignore, they pretend it doesn't affect them. But that doesn't work, because the reaction is still there. It's just hidden, and hidden reactions eventually show up in worse ways. So this is not about pretending. It's about awareness, real awareness, seeing the reaction as it happens, without immediately becoming it. And that takes practice. Because right now, your reactions are fast, automatic, unquestioned. But once you start slowing that down, you begin to see something clearly. Not everything deserves a reaction. And most of what you react to doesn't actually matter. But it feels like it does, because your mind assigns meaning too quickly. And that's what we change next. Because once you understand your triggers, you have to question something even deeper. Why do these reactions cost you so much? Why do they drain your energy, affect your decisions, and shape your life the way they do? Because the cost of reacting is much bigger than you think. And once you see that clearly, you'll start wanting control, not just understanding. And if you're starting to notice your own patterns right now, stay with this. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is where awareness turns into real change. And if you ever want to go deeper at your own pace, you can always find this as a full book or ebook on mayobook.com. But don't disconnect now, because the next part is where this becomes impossible to ignore. This is where it becomes real. Because up until now, it's easy to say, I just react sometimes. I just overthink. It's not that serious, but it is, because every reaction has a cost. Not always immediately, not always visibly, but over time it shapes your life in ways you don't even notice. Let's start with something simple. You get into a conversation. Someone says something you don't like. Maybe it's a tone, maybe it's a comment, maybe it feels slightly disrespectful, and instantly you react. You respond emotionally. You raise your voice. You become defensive. You try to prove a point. And in that moment, you feel justified. You feel like, I had to say something. But later, when the moment passes, you think about it, and something feels off. You replay it. You think, I could have handled that better. That's the cost, not just the moment, but what it leaves behind. Now imagine this repeated over time. In relationships, you react quickly. You take things personally. You respond emotionally. And slowly people start to feel it. Not always consciously, but they feel that you're easy to trigger, easy to move, easy to affect. And that changes how they interact with you. Some pull back. Some avoid deeper conversations. Some stop respecting your presence the same way. Not because you're a bad person, but because you're unpredictable emotionally, and unpredictability weakens trust. Now take it into opportunities. You're in a situation where you could step forward, speak, lead, show up. But something small triggers you. A look from someone, a thought. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they judge me? And instead of moving forward, you hold back, you stay quiet, you withdraw. And just like that, the opportunity passes. No one notices. But you do, and it reinforces something inside you. I'm not that person, but it's not true. You just reacted instead of stepping through the moment. And this happens more than you realize. You don't lose opportunities because you're not capable. You lose them because something small triggered a reaction that changed your behavior. Now let's go deeper. Your internal world. This is where the real cost shows up, because reacting doesn't just affect what you do, it affects how you feel about yourself. Every time you overreact, you lose a little trust in yourself. Every time you let something small affect your entire mood, you feel less in control. Every time you say, I shouldn't have done that, but still do it again later, you weaken your own confidence. And this is important, because confidence is not built from success. It's built from self-trust. And self-trust is built when you can rely on yourself to stay grounded, even when things are uncomfortable. But right now, your reactions break that trust. Because you don't feel consistent, you don't feel stable, you don't feel like you're in control, and that creates internal chaos. Your mood changes too quickly, your thoughts spiral too easily, your energy depends too much on external things, and that's exhausting. Not physically, mentally, emotionally. You wake up feeling fine, and within hours, something small shifts your entire state, and you don't even realize why, but it's reactions, small reactions stacking throughout the day. And this is why inner peace feels so far away, not because life is chaotic, but because your responses are. And until you control that, nothing will feel stable, not your mood, not your confidence, not your direction, because you're being moved too easily. And the world notices that. People notice that, even if they don't say it, because calm is powerful and reactivity is visible. You can feel it in someone. Someone who reacts quickly feels different, less grounded, less certain, more affected, and that changes how they are perceived. Not because perception matters most, but because it reflects something real, control, or lack of it, and this is where the shift begins. Because now, you're not just aware that you react. You see what it's costing you, in relationships, in opportunities, in how you see yourself, in your ability to feel at peace. And once you see the cost, you start wanting something different, not just understand control. Real control. The kind where not everything gets to you, not everything shifts your state, not everything deserves your energy. And that's where we go next. Because there is a way to live like that, a way to move through life without being pulled in every direction emotionally, a way to stay calm, even when things around you aren't. And it starts with a simple idea, but a powerful one. React to nothing, not because nothing matters, but because not everything deserves control over you. And once you understand what that really means, everything changes. And if this is starting to hit deeper than you expected, if you're recognizing the real cost in your own life, stay connected. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is where most people stop. But this is where real transformation begins. And if you ever want to revisit this at your own pace, you can always find this as a full book or ebook on Mayobook.com. But stay with this, because the next chapter is where the shift happens. Not just understanding the problem, but stepping into a completely different way of living. This is where everything shifts. Up until now, you've been reacting, automatically, constantly, without even realizing how often it happens. But now, we introduce something different. Something simple, but powerful enough to change everything. React to nothing, and before you misunderstand that, let's be clear. This does not mean you feel nothing, you ignore everything, you become passive, you let people walk over you. That's not power. That's suppression. And suppression always breaks later. Reacting to nothing means something else entirely. It means nothing gets to control you. Nothing gets immediate access to your emotions. Nothing gets to move you without your permission. That's emotional control. That's self-mastery. And that is where real confidence begins. Because right now, your reactions are not chosen. They're triggered. Something happens, and your mind immediately assigns meaning. Then your body responds. Then your behavior follows. All in seconds. No pause, no awareness, no control. That's reactivity. But imagine something different. Same situation, same trigger. But this time, you don't move immediately. You don't react. You observe. You pause. And in that pause, everything changes, because now you're not being controlled by the moment. You're deciding how to respond to it. That's power. Let's make this real. Someone disrespects you. Before you react, you respond emotionally. You try to correct them. You raise your tone. You feel the need to prove something. Now imagine this instead. You hear it. You feel the trigger, but you don't react. You stay still. You stay calm. And in that moment, you take control, because you're not giving them access to your emotional state. And that does something powerful, not just externally. Internally, you start realizing, I don't have to respond to everything. I don't have to prove myself. I don't have to react just because something happened. And that realization changes your entire presence. Let's go deeper. You're ignored. Someone doesn't respond. Someone doesn't acknowledge you. Before you react internally, you overthink, you question. You feel something shift. Now you see it. You feel the urge to react, but you don't follow it, you let it pass. And suddenly, it loses power, because the reaction is what gives it weight. Without the react, it's just a moment. Nothing more. And this is where people get it wrong. They think situations have power, they don't. Your reaction gives them power. Take that away, and most things become neutral. And this is where you start becoming dangerously confident, not because you're louder, not because you're trying harder, but because you are no longer easily moved. And that's rare. Most people are constantly reacting, emotionally pulled in different directions, controlled by opinions, affected by small things. But someone who reacts to nothing feels different, calm, grounded, unshakable. And people notice that, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you're not reacting the way they expect. And that breaks patterns, because people are used to controlling others through reactions. They say something. They expect a response. They behave a certain way. They expect it to affect you. But when it doesn't, you take back control, and that's where respect begins. Not forced, natural, because control is visible and emotional discipline is felt. But here's the important part. This doesn't happen overnight, because your reactions are trained. They're patterns, and patterns don't disappear instantly. They have to be interrupted, replaced, rebuilt. And that starts with awareness, catching the moment, feeling the trigger, and choosing not to react, even if it's just once, even if it's small, because that one moment breaks the automatic loop. And once you break it once, you can do it again, and over time, something changes. What used to trigger you starts to feel weaker. What used to affect you starts to feel irrelevant, and what used to control you loses its hold. That's the process, not perfection. Progress. And if this idea is landing for you, if you're starting to see how powerful this actually is, stay connected. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is where emotional control becomes real. And if you want to revisit this at your own pace, or go deeper into it in a format you can sit with, you can always find the full book or ebook on mayobook.com. But don't leave this moment yet, because understanding the idea is not enough. You need to know how to apply it in real time, in real situations, without overthinking it. And that's what we're about to break down next, because reacting to nothing is not just a mindset, it's a skill. And once you learn that skill, you don't just feel more in control, you become someone who is in control. Now we make this practical, because understanding react to nothing is powerful. But in the moment, when something actually triggers you, that's where most people lose control again. Not because they don't understand, but because they don't know what to do. So this is where we slow everything down and give you something you can actually use in real time, not later, not after you've already reacted. In the moment it happens, because that's where self-mastery is built. Let's break it down. Step 1. Notice the trigger. This is where it starts. Before control comes awareness, because right now your reactions happen too fast. Someone says something, and before you even think you feel it, that tension, that shift, that urge to respond, that's the trigger. And most people miss it. They skip straight to reacting. But you don't anymore. You notice it. You say to yourself, this is a trigger, not they're disrespecting me, not this is wrong, just this is a trigger. That creates space. And space is where control begins. Step 2, pause before meaning. This is critical, because the moment something happens, your mind tries to assign meaning. They ignored me, they don't respect me, they think I'm not good enough. But those are interpretations, not facts. So instead of accepting them immediately, you pause. You don't rush to decide what it means. You stay in the moment without adding a story to it, because most emotional reactions come from the story, not the situation. Step 3, separate fact from feeling. Let's make this clear. Fact, they didn't respond. Feeling, they're ignoring me. Those are not the same, but your reaction treats them like they are. And that's where you lose control. So you train yourself to separate them. What actually happened? What am I making it mean? That question alone will stop most emotional spirals. Step 4, regulate your body. This is where most people fail, because emotional reactions are not just mental, they're physical. Your heart rate changes. Your breathing shifts, your body prepares to react. So instead of fighting the feeling, you regulate it. Slow your breathing, relax your body, stay still for a moment, because when your body calms, your mind follows. And now, you're not reacting from intensity, you're responding from control. Step 5, choose your response. This is where power shows up, because now you're not reacting, you're choosing. And sometimes the best response is no response. Not everything deserves your energy. Not everything needs your attention. Not everything requires you to prove something. And when you realize that, you stop giving yourself away so easily. But when you do respond, it's intentional, calm, controlled, not rushed, not emotional, not reactive. That's dangerous confidence. Not loud, but precise. Step 6, let it go completely. This is where most people fall back. They don't react externally, but internally they hold on to it, they replay it. They think about it later, they let it sit in their mind. And that keeps the reaction alive. So the final step is this: you let it go completely. You don't carry it into the next hour. You don't carry it into your day. You don't let it affect your energy, because once the moment is over, it's over. And holding on to it is just another form of reacting. Now let's make this real again. You're in a conversation. Someone says something that triggers you. Before you react immediately, now you feel it. You notice it. You pause. You separate what happened from what you're thinking. You calm your body. And you choose your response. Or you don't respond at all. And just like that, you've broken the pattern. That's self-mastery. Not in theory, in action. And if you do this consistently, something powerful happens. Your reactions slow down, your awareness increases, your control strengthens, and over time you stop asking, how do I control my emotions? Because you're already doing it. Naturally. But here's the truth. This takes practice, because your old patterns will still show up, the triggers will still be there, the urge to react will still feel real. But now you have a process, a way to move through it, without losing control. And that's what changes everything. Because once you can do this in real time, you stop being controlled by moments and you start controlling your life. If this is starting to feel different, not just something to understand, but something you can actually use, stay connected. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is where emotional discipline becomes identity. And if you want to revisit this at your own pace or go deeper into it in a format you can sit with, you can always find the full book or ebook on mayobook.com. But stay with this, because the next step is deeper. Not just controlling reactions, but removing the need to care so much in the first place. Because that is where real freedom begins. This is where everything starts to feel lighter. Because if you're honest, a lot of your reactions come from one place: what people think, not always directly, but underneath it. You react because you don't want to be judged, you don't want to be misunderstood, you don't want to look wrong, you don't want to feel rejected. So you adjust, you explain more than necessary, you replay conversations. You think about how you came across, you change how you act depending on who you're around. And slowly, you stop being fully yourself. Not because you want to, but because you're trying to control perception. And that is exhausting, because no matter how much you try, you cannot control how people see you. Let that land. You can say everything perfectly and still be misunderstood. You can do everything right and still be judged. You can show up fully and still not be accepted by everyone. So if your emotional state depends on being perceived a certain way, you will never feel stable because you're trying to control something that isn't yours to control. And this is where the shift begins. You stop asking, "What do they think of me?" And you start asking, "Why does that matter so much to me?" Because that question reveals everything. Why does one comment stay in your mind all day? Why does one opinion affect your confidence? Why does one moment of awkwardness feel like something you need to fix? It's not about them. It's about what you believe it says about you. And that belief is where your reactions come from. If you believe, "I need people to approve of me," you will react every time you feel disapproval. If you believe, "I need to be liked," you will react every time you feel rejection. If you believe, "I need to be seen a certain way," you will react every time that image feels threatened. So the problem is not people, it's dependence, emotional dependence on external validation. And that's what we break, not by pretending you don't care, but by understanding why you care so much. Because once you see it clearly, you can loosen its control. Let's make this real. You say something in a group. It doesn't land the way you expected. Maybe it's quiet. Maybe someone reacts differently. Before you replay it, you think about it later, you question yourself. Now, you notice it, you feel the urge to react internally, but you pause and you remind yourself, "I don't need to control how this was received." And just like that, you release it, not perfectly, but intentionally. And that changes everything, because now you're not holding on to small moments and turning them into bigger ones. You're letting them pass. And that creates freedom. Another example, someone judges you directly or indirectly before you react. You feel the need to explain, to defend, to correct them. Now you see it differently. You realize their opinion is a reflection of their perspective, not my identity. And suddenly you don't feel the need to engage, because not every opinion deserves your response, and not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. That's emotional detachment. Not cold, not distant, just grounded. And this is where people misunderstand confidence again. They think confident people don't care at all. That's not true. They care, but selectively. They choose what matters. And more importantly, they choose what doesn't. And that's the difference. Right now, too many things matter to you. Too many opinions. Too many small moments. Too many interpretations. And that creates constant emotional movement. But when you reduce that, when fewer things affect you, your mind becomes quieter, your state becomes stable, and your presence changes. You stop reacting to everything. You stop caring about things that don't matter. And you start focusing on what actually does. Your actions, your growth, your direction. And that's where confidence becomes real. Because now, it's not built on approval. It's built on alignment. You're not trying to be accepted. You're trying to be consistent with who you are. And that is unshakable. But here's something important. This doesn't mean you'll never feel triggered again. You will. You'll still notice opinions. You'll still feel moments. But now, they won't control you the same way. Because you understand them. And what you understand, you can manage. So the next time you feel that pull, that urge to care too much, pause and ask yourself, does this actually matter? Or am I just reacting to perception? That question will free you more than you think. And if this is starting to shift how you see yourself, if you're realizing how much energy you've been giving away, stay connected, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this is where emotional freedom becomes real. And if you want to revisit this at your own pace or go deeper into it in a format you can sit with, you can always find the full book or ebook on mayobook.com. But don't stop here, because understanding why you care is only part of the shift. The next step is becoming someone who is no longer easily shaken in any situation. Not just in thought, but in presence. And that is where we go next. This is where everything starts to show. Not just internally, but externally, because up until now, you've been learning control. Now you start becoming someone different, someone who is not easily moved, someone who is not constantly reacting, someone who doesn't lose themselves in every situation. This is what it means to become dangerously confident. And that word matters, not confident, dangerously confident, because this kind of confidence is not based on validation, not based on mood, not based on outcomes, it's based on control. The kind of control where your emotions don't decide your behavior, your reactions don't define your identity, your environment doesn't dictate your state. And when you live like that, you feel different, calmer,
more grounded, more present, and people feel that.
Not because you're trying to show it, but because you're not reacting the way they expect. Let's make this real. You walk into a room. Before you scan everything, who's looking at you? Who's judging you? How you should act? You adjust yourself before you even settle in. Now you walk in. You don't rush to interpret everything. You don't assume anything. You don't change your state. You just exist as you are. And that alone changes your presence, because you're not seeking approval. You're not reacting to perception. You're grounded. And that's rare. Another moment, someone tries to provoke you. A comment, a tone, something designed to get a reaction. Before you react, you defend, you engage emotionally. Now you hear it. You understand what it is, but you don't react. You stay calm, you stay still. And in that moment, you take control of the entire interaction. Because when you don't react, you don't give them what they're looking for. And that shifts the dynamic, not through force, through control. And this is what most people don't understand. Power is not in reacting strongly. Power is in choosing not to react at all when it's not necessary. Because reacting emotionally gives away your position. It shows where you're affected. It shows what controls you. But calm hides that. Calm shows control. Calm shows discipline. Calm shows that you are not easily influenced, and that's what makes it dangerous. Because now, you're not predictable. You're not easy to read. You're not easy to move. And people don't know how to handle that. Because most interactions are built on reactions. People say something, they expect a response. They act a certain way. They expect it to affect you. But when it doesn't, you break the pattern. And that creates respect, not forced, natural. Because you're not playing the same game. But this goes deeper than interactions. This becomes identity. Because over time, you stop seeing yourself as someone who reacts. You start seeing yourself as someone who chooses. And that shift matters. Because identity drives behavior. If you still see yourself as someone who overreacts, someone who gets triggered easily, someone who cares too much, you will continue to act that way. But when you start seeing yourself as someone who is in control, someone who stays calm under pressure, someone who chooses their response, your behavior begins to align with that, naturally, not forced. And this is how real confidence is built. Not by convincing yourself you're confident, but by proving to yourself that you can stay in control, in real situations, over and over again. Every time you don't react when you used to, you build evidence. Every time you stay calm when you could have been triggered, you build identity. Every time you choose your response, instead of following your reaction, you strengthen control. And over time, you don't even think about it the same way. It becomes natural. You don't get pulled in as easily. You don't overanalyze as much. You don't care about things that used to affect you. And that's when you realize you've changed. Not because you tried to be different, but because you trained yourself to respond differently. And that's what makes this sustainable. But here's the truth. This doesn't mean nothing will ever affect you again. It means fewer things will, and the things that do won't control you the same way. Because now you have awareness, you have tools, you have discipline, and most importantly, you have choice. And that's what most people are missing. They don't feel like they have a choice. They feel like, I just react. I just feel this way. I can't help it. But now you know better. You see the pattern. You understand the triggers. You know how to respond. So now you have responsibility. Not pressure, responsibility. Because the next time something happens, you will recognize it. And in that moment, you will have a decision. React or stay in control. And that decision is what defines who you become. And if this is starting to feel real, not just something to listen to, but something you can actually become, stay connected. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is where identity becomes transformation. And if you want to revisit this at your own pace, or go deeper into it in a format you can sit with, you can always find the full book or ebook on mayobook.com. But stay with this, because there's one final layer to this. Not just becoming this version of yourself, but living by principles that make this permanent. So you don't fall back. So you don't lose control again. So this becomes who you are, not just something you try to do. And that's what we're about to close with. At the beginning of this, you thought the problem was your emotions. You thought, I just overreact. I just care too much. I just need to be more confident. But now, you see it differently. You see the pattern. You see the triggers. You see the moments where everything shifts and you lose control. And more importantly, you see something most people never fully understand. You were never out of control. You were just reacting automatically. And now, That's changed because now you notice it. You notice the moment before the reaction, that slight tension, that urge to respond, that pull to react, and that moment is everything because before you didn't see it, now you do. And once you see it, you can't go back to not seeing it. The next time someone ignores you, you'll notice it. The next time someone says something that would normally trigger you, you'll feel it. The next time your mind starts creating stories, you'll catch it. And in that moment, you will have something you didn't have before. Choice, not a loud dramatic choice, a quiet one, the kind that happens internally, the kind that determines everything. React or stay in control. And that decision, repeated over time, is what creates a completely different life. Because now, you're not being moved by everything. You're deciding what moves you, and most things won't. You won't feel the need to respond to everything. You won't feel the need to prove yourself constantly. You won't feel pulled into every situation. Because you understand something now. Not everything deserves access to your energy. Not everything deserves your attention. Not everything deserves a reaction. And that realization creates something powerful. Space. Space in your mind. Space in your emotions. Space between what happens and how you respond. And in that space, you find something most people are missing. Peace. Not because life is perfect, but because you're no longer reacting to everything in it. And that peace is where real confidence lives. Not forced, not loud, not dependent on anything external. Just steady, grounded, unshakable. That is what it means to become dangerously confident, not someone who tries to appear strong, but someone who cannot be easily moved. But before you move on, there's something you need to understand. This is not the end. Not in a content sense, in a real sense, because controlling your reactions is only the first level of self-mastery. There's another layer, a deeper one, and it shows up when your life actually starts changing. When you start becoming more disciplined, more focused, more in control. Because that's when something unexpected happens. Not reactions, but pressure. The pressure to maintain it, the pressure to keep showing up, the pressure of becoming someone different. And that's where most people fall back again. Not because they don't understand, but because they don't know how to hold that version of themselves yet. And if you've ever made progress and somehow found yourself slipping back into old patterns, you've already felt it, but you haven't fully understood it yet. And that is a different level of mastery. So before you leave this, pause. Don't try to change everything at once. Just notice. Notice your reactions. Notice your triggers. Notice those small moments where you now have a choice and choose differently. Even if it's just once today, because that's where this becomes real. Not in what you understand, but in what you do next. And if this spoke to you, not just on the surface, but in a way that made you see yourself clearly, then stay connected, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this is where real self-mastery is built. And if something in this book truly resonated with you, something that made you pause or see yourself differently, share it in the comments. Because sometimes putting it into words is what makes it real, and it might help someone else see what they've been missing too. And if you want to revisit this at your own pace or go deeper into it in a format you can sit with, you can always find the full book or ebook on mayobook.com. But before you go, remember this. The next time something tries to trigger you, that urge to react, that pull to respond immediately, that moment where you normally lose control, you'll see it, and in that moment you'll know exactly what it is, and you won't be able to say, I didn't know. Because now you do. So the real question becomes, will you keep reacting, or will you finally take control when it matters most? Because that moment is where everything changes. And next time, we go deeper. Not just into controlling your reactions, but into becoming the kind of person who doesn't feel controlled by anything at all. Stay ready for that.